What's the best advice you've ever been given about rollers?
The best advice.
And what's the wrong or worst advice you've ever got about rollers?
The best advice that I get for myself, if you look after your birds will look after you. So if there's something wrong with your birds and you see it's not right to put it in the air, better keep it one side, treat it firstly, then it can produce for you. Because sometimes a bird can be maybe like a cold that he won't produce for you. So actually he's down, like in down, so now you force him to give you something, but he can't give it for you at that time because he's a weak bird at that stage.
Okay. Here's a controversial one. And people normally say that the quality of birds that we have right now is inferior to the quality of birds that used to exist back in the days. Your times of the Alimatiers, your Nico Holdenbaum, your Omfangs. Like if we were to take the two groups, the two generations, this generation and that generation, the older generation would beat us. Because they were on the, would you say that's right? Or
I
maybe the
disagree on that, because the next generation took over from where they stopped. So what we actually do, if we go to the generation, we try to build, to go better, not the way it was started from, but to create a better performance what it was in the past.
Oh, so we're improving on
We're improving a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
And I like that answer. Is it true that when you feed your birds high protein feed, they become too strong in the air? Like for instance, when you're flying with hard mealy, they end up going too high in the air and they cannot be judgeable. Would you agree with that? Or you believe that you need to feed separate different seeds?
You see, what I actually do, I fly my birds only on whole mealies. I don't put any corn in, I don't put nothing wheat or nothing. I only fly with high mealies. But the thing is, to calculate your birds, it depends on the food that you give your birds. Because the more food you will give, your birds will perform higher. The less food you're going to give, then they have a shorter distance, because what calculate on your birds is the amount of food that you're feeding them, and that is what is going to give you the high levels that you want from your bird actually.
Oh, 100%. Okay, here's another question. With your competition kit, do you feed them straight up after flying, or you give them time to relax? And then after maybe 3 or 5 minutes, then you can feed them, or you just feed them straight up when they just landed?
See, my competition birds, for instance, if we have the flight tomorrow for competition, I'll feed my birds 12 hours before flying time. Okay. So what happens if the competition is done, my birds will sit in the loft. So what I did, my birds have a certain time what I'm feeding them. I don't change times on them, because sometimes you won't be able to get, because you get used to times, they get used to times. So now when they come not on that time, it's going to become a problem for you, especially if you're on competition and you feed early. So even to have a bird, you feed him in competition also, the bird is going to perform for you. But still, if there's food in the throat as well, it's going to hurt the bird. So it's better for a roller to fly a competition on an empty stomach, because with food in the stomach, it's going to come a problem for the bird end of the day. It's going to be like a irritation for your bird. So what I actually do, I feed them 12 hours before flying time. So my time that I actually feed my birds is between from 5 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh. So from that time, I know we already finished the comp. So I know at that time my birds is already rest out properly. They already drink water, and then they know they'll get their food in the afternoon when it's done.
Got it. I've heard people say that during the molt, you shouldn't feed birds extra feed from their usual quantity you normally feed them, because it affects the growth of the feathers that is coming out if you feed them extra feed.
For me, I don't see it can be a problem, or it can cause a problem like that, because my birds also is going through molding. I'll just give them the same amount food like I give them usually. I don't feed extra or I don't feed less. I keep them on the same balance that I did every day.
Oh, okay. There are people that swear on hens that look like cocks, or cocks that look like cocks. What's your take on the smaller typed cocks? Or you'd find that a cock looks like a hen, or maybe a hen can be bigger in size. When you're looking at it, you think that it's a cock. Do you believe that body type or body size matters when you pairing your birds?
Actually, what I said, for me, it's only about the genetics of the bird. You see, what most people do, they breed small birds with big cocks, hens. So what they actually do, they just put more body weight, because a smaller bird is more lighter than a big bird. So actually, we can take it from a bird that's going from a long distance roller and you don't have the wings to open properly, the bird is going to come right through. But the small hen is it's a light bird. So easily the role of the bird also can change this as well. Because sometimes you'll find the small bird is rolling slowly down and the bigger bird is coming with speed down. So there is changes about big and small as well.
Oh, got it. Okay, this is a separate question. So I've heard birds before that came from good lines that will produce you 16 seconds, 25 seconds. And then from that line, you breed birds. And then those birds, they can't even do a single flip in the air. But the babies that they produce, they roll too long. Like, what do you think causes that? Would you say is a line thing, or maybe, I don't know how to phrase this question properly.
For me, actually, what I'll see is only the genetics. Yeah. What's in the parents, what it was created. Yeah. Because like you instance said, the bird, the father didn't roll, but the mother didn't roll, but previously their father and mother roll. So still the genetics is still in the baby's blood, but the baby don't perform like the parents that he used to breed from didn't come back. So actually what I'll say, the genetics from the previous line will just be continuously rolling over to the next line that is developed, and that's where it can start from rolling.
Oh, 100%. Is it a must to keep your kid slightly hungry when you're flying to produce great results from the flying kit? When you're flying, do you fly on an empty stomach, or?
Especially if I fly my pigeons on an empty stomach.
Oh, so that they produce you great results.
Produce greatly, and they didn't feel irritated if there's still food into the throat or in the stomach.
Oh, got it.
Because I previously saw from other people's birds, if there's still food in the throat or in the stomach, the bird rolls down. I mean, even it's like human being. If you have too much food or you overeat it yourself and you're rolling around in the yard, what is going to happen to you? You're going to start vomiting, because it's the same for the pigeon. If there's something in the stomach, it's going to become irritating because it's rolling. So sometimes when he will come set, you will see he will spoil out all the food that he ate because it's irritating him.
Oh, got it. Would you say that pedigree is everything for you when you're buying birds from someone, or it's not that important for you?
Actually, what I'll say, pedigree tells you the truth from where the line was created from. Because to work out without the pedigree, and you didn't have the history of the birds that you have, mother and father and grandfather's pedigree, then you don't know with what color of sort line you're working with. So it's better to have a pedigree from a bird, that what was it created, from what line it was breeded. You know actually if you have the most close line that line is, you know if you can work it or your line, or must you start create another line, because without a pedigree it's going to come a problem for you.
Oh, so pedigree is just mainly where the birds come from. That's the only thing
That's the only thing. The pedigree will show you who was the father that was the breeder, who was the mother that was breeder. So what you had a stud page. Yes. So before you start breeding, you put the hen's name in the stud page, you put her father's name in the stud page, and from there you can breed about 3 or 4 rounds, and every baby that is maybe ringed, you'll put it into the stud page, number 1 baby, number 2 baby, and so from there you put a ring, the year number, ring number, and from there you know if you had a bird that maybe performed for you in the air. So now you can already forget who was the parents, because you didn't have a pedigree or a stud. So at the end of the day, if a bird can roll, you see it's a good bird, you can catch them out of your loft, you can see the ring number, you can go back to your breeding stud pages, and from there you can see who was the mother, who was the father that produced that bird for you without hassling and problems.
Oh, got it. So, in your competition kit, when you're still training them, while they're still young, would you remove a bird if the bird couldn't group or go back to the kit?
What I'll do, I'll sort my kits out. Like for me, I have a B, a C, a D, a F, and a G kit. So what my most best birds will do, I'll put them one side. The ones that doesn't produce, like the ones that is already in training completely, I will set them aside. So that's why I'll sort them out. Because longer ones, I'll keep it with longer ones. Shorter ones, I'll keep it with shorter ones. Because sometimes you'll find you have a long bird, then you have a short bird, but the short bird don't go too fast high to help the long bird to get the limit that you want. So the time when the short bird is underneath and you had the long bird will roll down, then it's not the pigeon's fault because you roll down. You didn't have the speed to go fast enough for the highest you want to be created of. Yeah.
Okay, the last question. How do you home your birds?
Hey, easy way that I'm owning my birds, the time when they come about from, when I take them from the mother, I took them out and I inject them with the PMV for viruses,
Yes.
and then I'll put them in the cages about for a month. From a month, then I'll start removing one from them, then I'll take the feathers. The first 5 feathers, I will take some insulation tape and then I will turn it around the pigeon's flight, and then I'll let them walk about for 1 week onto the ground. Then I'll leave them again 1 week into the cage, and then I'll leave them about for 2 weeks again onto the ground so they can learn to go from the ground to the lofts back. And then from the 3rd week, then I'll just remove the tape and then I'll just make them skate slightly to just make a turn around the house so they can get a proper view of the environment that they're in, because suddenly if you don't home your birds properly and they go up too fast, you will get an overflight because the bird is not used to be where the lofts from him is. So the best thing is you must first home him before you send him to the sky to train.
Oh, got it. Okay, with the contribution or any contribution you've ever done in the pigeon sports, what is it that you'd like to be remembered as in the pigeon fancier community? What is it?
To become a legend and to have the longest rollers.
Oh, 100%.
That's safe and properly.
Oh, 100%. That's the last question. We're done.